Spirituality is not about sitting on a cushion with your eyes closed. It's about being out in the world with your eyes wide open, wrestling with the world around us. There are three reasons, at least, why I think it's difficult for me and probably for you too, certainly for lots of other people, to do private spiritual practice as a way of being enlightened or becoming more ethical or noticing, the whole of the picture. The first is time. It takes a lot of time. Unless you're a monastic, unless you're a monk or a nun in a monastery, most of us have other things we need to be getting on with most of the time. And they say it takes 10,000 hours to be good at anything, right? So who has 10,000 hours to sit contemplating or to study and read and meditate on or chant on something? Most of us don't. And so we never become accomplished. Early Buddhism recognized this. There were some people who were called householders and some people who were monastics, and they were different roads. There wasn't one better than the other, but it was recognized that you could become a Buddha, enlightened, through other means. And we've lost sight of that. We don't have time. That's the first reason. The second reason is it wears off. I found back when I was a priest, I'd find myself transported sometimes in church on a Sunday morning and feel this deep sense of compassion and love and, out of this worldness. And then I'd go home and shout at my kids. Or I can go on retreat and spend time focused on the breath and feel the separation of self and other. And then on the drive home, I get angry with another driver. I start worrying about my finances. I start being attached to a future that doesn't exist. All of those things that I learn in private spiritual practice, they seem to just disappear the moment it ends, with just a little trace of it left, but not enough to make it feel like it was worth the effort. The third reason I think, and this might be the most surprising, is that I think there's something counter learning about private spiritual practice when it comes to being aware or that the separation of self and other is an illusion. If Buddhist practice and right vision is about realizing that the separate self isn't real, then why are we spending so much time trying to be a separate self, trying to be enlightened as a separate self, trying to have our ego dissolve as a separate ego? Why do we think private practice is the way to be less private? Actually, we're reinforcing this idea of separation when we think that enlightenment comes on our own with our eyes closed. In other words, it's not about change being from the inside out. It's about change being from the outside in. Spirituality can be about being in the world and letting it change us by finding through attention, through right mindfulness in the struggles and the suffering and the ugliness and the conflict in the world, that deeper sense of what we are about and of what we aren't about. By analogy, I've got two analogies for this. One is exercise, because in Buddhism, it's not about morality, it's about skill and it's about training. Well, in physical exercise, you can go to the gym and you can train that way, or you can go and be a climber or a boulderer, or you can row, or you can box, or you can play golf, whatever it is you do, and you can get physically fit and train your muscles and your agility through a practice, or through the job that you do, through being a builder or a teacher, whatever it is. You're being very physical, you're getting exercise, and you're building up your skill in a way that immediately tells you whether it's working or not and whether it's practical or not. So there is no it drifting off as you go out into the real world, because you're developing it in the real world. And maybe sometimes in those times you think, actually, I've got to develop a skill in the gym. So I love to swim out on the lake or in a river. And as I do that, I might notice, there's some trouble with my shoulder. I'm not doing it right. And so I need to exercise at home or in the gym to build up the right flexibility to focus on something. But I've got a reason then. And in spiritual times, it gives you a reason to sit on the cushion with your eyes closed, because you've made the shift of focus of your spirituality out in the world. When you come to be separate, it's for a specific purpose. It's a matter of emphasis, really. And my other parallel really is language acquisition. I'm trying to learn Hindi at the moment, and I've tried to learn other languages too in the past. And I'm doing all my language learning through speaking. And I'm finding I'm getting there so much quicker. And this has been known for a long time, that immersion and conversation are much more effective ways to learn language. Not textbooks, not apps where we learn by rote individual words, but straight away speaking. And it makes sense then, doesn't it, that our spirituality should be by immersion. Immersion in the world, not separation from it. So if, like me, you found that you're a failure at prayer, that you really struggle to keep up your practice of mindful meditation and contemplation, maybe that's okay. Maybe you just need, like me, to try and find other ways. And so I've developed a series on the Eightfold Path as a different way of looking at it, a Navayana way of looking at the Eightfold Path, which is about our struggle to change the world as it is into the world as it should be. But I do feel like a complete novice and beginner at this, so I would love to know, what are your ways? How are you doing spirituality in the workplace? How are you doing spirituality in your relationships, out in the world, in the struggles and the conflicts? How are you being attentive in those moments where we are so easily distracted? And in those moments, finding your true self and the true world. How are you finding into being not sat at home on your own, but out there? Please teach me. Put it in the comments. Oh, and check out that series too.